Something is happening in America's housing market that almost no one is prepared for. And certainly not at this speed. After years of bidding wars, record-breaking price surges, and homes flying off the market in hours, we are now witnessing a sharp reversal that feels less like a cool-down and more like an unfolding collapse. And while national headlines continue to downplay the shift, the real story is emerging city by city, places where prices are not dipping, but falling hard, sending shockwaves through local economies and waking up homeowners who thought their equity was safe. Before we get into the details, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the economic storm forming across the United States. And tell me in the comments, do you think this housing downturn is the full crash or just the first wave? What you're about to hear today is not a list of mild market corrections. It's a map of vulnerable cities where price declines are accelerating, inventory is piling up, and buyers are disappearing faster than anyone expected. For months, experts insisted that the housing market wouldn't crash because of low supply. But reality is beginning to look very different. Mortgage rates jumping beyond 7% didn't just cool the market, they flipped it. Demand collapsed. Investors pulled back. First-time buyers were priced out. Sellers who believed their homes would sell instantly are now staring at listings that sit untouched for 60, 90, even 120 days. And once properties sit, panic sets in. Price cuts begin, appraisals fall, and entire neighborhoods start racing downward. That's how a collapse starts. Slowly, then suddenly. And today, that suddenly moment is hitting multiple cities at once.
So let's break down the 10 U.S. cities where home prices are collapsing right now. Starting with a former pandemic superstar that soared too high, too fast.
Number 10. Austin, Texas. For 2 straight years, Austin symbolized the remote work boom. Californians arrived with tech salaries. Investors rushed in, and bidding wars became the norm. But what goes up rapidly often comes down even faster. Austin's home prices are now down more than 12% year over year, and some neighborhoods are reporting declines of 20% or more. Inventory has surged, days on market have doubled and tripled, and the tech layoffs hitting the region have drained demand across the board. Tens of thousands bought at peak valuations, and many of them are now watching their equity evaporate at a pace no one predicted. Number 9. Phoenix, Arizona. If Austin was the symbol of the tech migration boom, Phoenix was the capital of investor buying. Large firms bought hundreds of homes at a time, pushing prices up at a speed the local market couldn't support. But investors aren't emotional, they're mathematical. And the moment profits shrink, they unload properties fast. Inventory in Phoenix has jumped sharply. Price cuts are everywhere, and many zip codes are already down 10 to 15% from peak levels. With investors exiting and affordability collapsing, Phoenix is entering a dangerous downward slide, one that many analysts believe has only just begun. Now, as we move further down this list, the story becomes even more unsettling because these next cities weren't just hot markets. They were places where families believed they were finally getting stability. Yet today, they're seeing equity wiped out month after month, and the data coming in is painting a picture of a housing market that is not cooling, but cracking. Number 8. Boise, Idaho. Boise was one of the biggest winners of the 2020 to 2021 migration wave. People poured in from California, Oregon, and Washington, desperate for cheaper living and a quieter lifestyle. But that wave created one of the most inflated markets in the country, with prices jumping nearly 60% in just 2 years. That kind of growth is impossible to sustain, and now the correction is brutal. Home prices in Boise are down roughly 10 to 14% year over year, and some outer suburbs are reporting declines closer to 18%. What's worse is that Boise's local economy simply couldn't keep up with the inflated price levels. Wages didn't match the new cost of housing, and as soon as mortgage rates climbed, The demand that once felt unstoppable collapsed almost overnight. Inventory has nearly doubled from last year, and many sellers who moved to Boise during the peak are now underwater on mortgages they thought were safe bets. Number 7. Sacramento, California. Sacramento was once considered the affordable alternative for Bay Area residents, but the migration rush pushed prices far beyond what local incomes could handle. Now, the reversal is hitting hard. Home values are down between 8 to 12%, depending on the neighborhood, and the days of all-cash buyers dominating the market are fading fast. A big problem here is the cost of living squeeze. Property taxes, insurance, and utilities have climbed aggressively, squeezing homeowners who bought at the top of the market with thin financial buffers. Sacramento is also facing rising seller desperation, price cuts, incentives, and sellers offering to cover closing costs just to get offers. The illusion of endless demand has shattered, and the market now feels like it's deflating from the inside out. Number 6. Denver, Colorado. Denver's downturn has shocked many analysts. For nearly a decade, Denver was one of America's strongest growth markets. Tech expansion, high wages, booming population, endless demand. But all cycles eventually reached their peak, and Denver hit its ceiling right when higher mortgage rates struck. Prices here are down 7 to 10% year over year. But the deeper concern is the surge in inventory. Listings have jumped by more than 30% in many parts of the metro, and the days on market metric is stretching longer every month. Denver's affordability crisis is also catching up to the city. Locals were already priced out even before mortgage rates climbed. Now, with monthly payments soaring, buyer demand is evaporating at the exact moment sellers are flooding the market. That combination is a classic early warning signal of a deeper correction ahead. Number 5. Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville's boom was legendary. Music industry money, tech expansion, investor buying, and one of the fastest population growth rates in the country. But that same explosive growth created a pricing bubble. And now, Nashville is one of the most rapidly cooling housing markets in the South. Prices are down around 6 to 11%. But what's alarming is the sudden slowdown in sales volume. Agents report that showings have fallen off a cliff. Investors who once competed fiercely for short-term rental properties are now backing out of deals or dumping listings due to new regulations and rising financing costs. The Airbnb gold rush has faded, and with tourism volatility, many short-term rental owners are experiencing negative cash flow for the first time ever. Nashville's cooling is no longer just a trend, it's a reversal. These 5 markets alone would be concerning, but the top 4 cities on this list are facing even more severe breakdowns. As we enter the top 4, the situation becomes far more alarming, because these cities are not just facing declining demand, they are experiencing full-scale market stress. These are places where price drops, rising inventory, affordability collapse, and economic pressure are all hitting at the same time, creating the perfect conditions for a steep downward slide. Number 4. Portland, Oregon. Portland's housing market was already showing cracks before mortgage rates surged, but the recent downturn has pushed the city into one of the sharpest declines in the West. Prices are now down roughly 9 to 13% year over year. But in certain neighborhoods, especially those farther from downtown, declines are even steeper. Portland is dealing with a layered crisis: population stagnation, rising crime perceptions, and a weakening job market. These pressures are driving buyers away, while simultaneously pushing more homeowners to sell. Inventory has spiked dramatically, and many listings are experiencing multiple rounds of price cuts, sometimes as high as $50,000 to $100,000. The emotional shift is noticeable. Sellers no longer feel confident, buyers no longer feel urgency, and the market is losing momentum in a way that suggests a prolonged correction rather than a quick adjustment. The pandemic brought people in. The economic and social pressures are now pushing them out. Number 3. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas is no stranger to housing volatility, but even by Vegas standards, years. This downturn is flashing bright red warning lights. Home prices are down roughly 10 to 15% from peak. But the more troubling trend is the massive cool-down in buyer activity. This is a city where tourism drives nearly every corner of the local economy. And tourism is still unstable. When the hospitality sector slows, jobs disappear. When jobs disappear, housing demand collapses. Las Vegas is also heavily dependent on service workers who simply cannot afford the new mortgage payment. Add rising insurance costs and some of the fastest-growing HOA fees in the country, and you have a recipe for severe affordability strain. Investors who once treated Vegas as a cash flow playground are now retreating, leaving behind neighborhoods full of rentals that can't command the same returns. The city is once again caught in the familiar cycle: rapid rise, rapid fall. And this time, the recovery might be slower. Number 2. San Francisco, California. San Francisco's housing market is undergoing one of its most dramatic resets in modern history. We're talking about a city that once had some of the highest price growth in the world, now experiencing a prolonged and painful decline. Prices are down 12 to 18% from peak, depending on the district. But the real story is the collapse in demand. Tech layoffs have hit buyer confidence hard. Remote work continues to empty out offices, and the city's population is still shrinking, a dangerous trend for a market already deeply unaffordable. Condos in particular are suffering, with some units selling for 20 to 25% below peak prices. Many homeowners who bought in the last 5 years are now trapped between declining equity and rising costs. San Francisco's correction isn't about a temporary economic dip, it's a structural shift in how people live and work. Now, all of this brings us to the city at number 1, the place where price declines are the sharpest, inventory is exploding the fastest, and homeowners are facing the clearest signs of a true market collapse. What's happening there is so severe that analysts are starting to compare it to the early signs of the 2008 downturn. And now we move into the part of the list where the collapse becomes impossible to ignore. Because these next cities aren't just cooling, they are deteriorating at a speed that economists did not expect. These are the markets where entire neighborhoods are quietly shifting from property boom to economic warning zone. Number 4. San Francisco, California. Everyone expected San Francisco prices to fall, but no one expected this. Median home values in the city have now fallen so sharply that analysts are calling it the steepest housing reset in modern Bay Area history. We're talking about a market that once felt untouchable, now experiencing a painful contraction driven by tech layoffs, empty office towers, and an exodus of residents who simply refuse to pay historic bubble-level prices. And here's the hidden piece no one talks about. San Francisco's seller psychology has finally cracked. Homes that once sold in days are now sitting for months. Price cuts are becoming the norm. And more importantly, sellers who bought during the 2020 to 2022 frenzy are discovering they have negative equity, a phrase we haven't heard this loudly since the 2008 crash. This isn't just a correction, it's a structural unwinding. Number 3. Boise, Idaho. Then there's Boise, once the pandemic darling of the American housing market. A city people fled to when coastal prices got too expensive. But now, Boise is experiencing the dark side of its own popularity. After some of the fastest price growth in the nation, the reversal has been equally powerful. Home values are dropping. Buyers are disappearing, and investors who bought sight unseen are pulling out just as quickly as they rushed in. The bidding wars are gone. The cash offers are gone. And in some neighborhoods, it feels like the air just got sucked out of the entire economy. What's left is a market trying to figure out what its real value actually is. When affordability collapses, demand collapses right behind it. And Boise is learning that lesson the hard way. Number 2, Las Vegas, Nevada. Now we head back to a city that knows housing volatility better than anyone, Las Vegas. For months, local economists warned that the city's prices were artificially inflated, propped up by investor purchases, short-term rental speculation, and residents stretched to their financial financial limits. But just like in the run-up to 2008, when Vegas cracks, it cracks fast. We're now seeing a sharp jump in homes returning to the market after failed escrows. We're seeing more price reductions than at any point in the past decade. And distress signals, late payments, loan delinquencies, and foreclosure filings are beginning to climb again. The fear isn't just that prices are falling, it's that a domino effect could begin. When one owner is forced to sell low, it drags the entire neighborhood down with it. And in a city built on volatility, even a small correction can snowball into a full-blown downturn. Number 1. Austin, Texas. And finally, we reach the top of the list. The biggest housing price collapse happening in America right now. Austin, a city once crowned as the fastest-growing housing market in the country, now dealing with the consequences of runaway speculation. Prices surged too high, too fast, fueled by tech migration, investor money, and an unrealistic belief that demand would never slow. But demand did slow, and when it did, Austin didn't just cool, it fell off a cliff. Inventory is piling up, sellers are slashing prices, and new construction, once the engine of Austin's boom, has become a major weight dragging the entire market downward. Because when too many homes are built at bubble prices, eventually someone gets stuck holding the bill. Austin is the epicenter of the correction, the clearest example of what happens when a market goes from hyper-growth to hard landing. So now that we've gone through all 10 cities where home prices are collapsing right now, let's step back for a moment, because the real story here isn't just individual markets falling. The real story is what these 10 cities reveal about the deeper cracks forming beneath the entire American economy. When you see places as completely different as Austin, Las Vegas, Boise, San Francisco, Phoenix, and Detroit, all suffering the same pattern at the same time, that is not random, and it is definitely not a coincidence. It is a signal, a pressure point, a warning that something much larger is unfolding across the national housing landscape. And here's what the data makes painfully clear. The U.S. housing market is entering a recalibration phase, one that millions of Americans are not financially prepared for. For years, the only direction home prices ever seemed to move was up. People bought houses under the assumption that appreciation was guaranteed. Investors treated real estate like a slot machine that could never land on zero. And city after city convinced itself that growth, migration, and demand would protect them forever. But markets don't rise forever. And when they overheat, they correct. And when they seriously overheat, they collapse. The warning signs were all around us. Record high prices, record low affordability, record levels of investor ownership, record homeowner debt, and a Federal Reserve tightening the financial system at the fastest pace in modern history. Put all of that together, and you get the moment we're living in today. Prices falling in pockets of the country that were once considered bulletproof. Sellers cut faster than they ever imagined. Buyers are stepping back because mortgage payments have nearly doubled in just a few years, and entire communities facing the uncomfortable truth that the boom they celebrated was built on foundations weaker than they realized. The real question is, who gets hurt the most when prices fall? Because behind every declining market is a family watching their equity evaporate. A seller realizes they can't move because they owe more than the home is now worth. A buyer, discovering that the house they stretched everything to afford is sinking in value. A landlord stuck with a mortgage that no longer has cash flows. A community watching tax revenue shrink just as costs are rising. A housing downturn is never just about numbers. It's about people, stability, livelihoods, and the financial backbone of the American middle class. And here's the harsh truth. Some cities will recover, and some won't. Some will stabilize, others will spiral. Housing downturns don't strike evenly. They hit hardest where speculation ran wild, where wages lagged too far behind home prices, and where families were pressured into buying high because the fear of missing out was stronger than the fear of overpaying.